Ryan North and Guillermo Sana explore a twisted origin of Tony Stark, who upon building his first ever Iron Man suit finds he cannot live without it. So much so it begins taking over every aspect of his life and his body. Ryan North channels David Cronenberg body horror for this warped retelling of Tony Stark's early days as Iron Man, all told from the point of view of Pepper Potts, giving us a unique aspect to Tony's story and insight into the little ticks and how he goes about his work in his lab. I like Ryan also treats the armor as an addiction, something we've seen before in comics, as well as it being one of the driving plots of Iron Man 3, but I really love the horror slant to it and comparing the armor, which was meant to save his life and did indeed do that, to a parasite that just feeds off Tony's body until he's nothing. It's quite a terrifying way to take the story, and I quite like that. My only real complaint, and it's not even really a complaint, is that this is part of the Darkhold event. For what I've seen, the Darkhold event is just made up of these tie-ins, with each of the characters who read from the Darkhold getting a tie-in issue before a final issue ending the story, but there isn't really anything here that connects it to that. I understand that it's probably just going to be sort of tales from the Darkhold sort of stuff with these tie-ins, which is pretty cool, but I would have kind of liked a little bit more story from like the present day stuff with Scarlet Witch and Doom thrown in there, maybe at the end where they're trying to help the heroes or something. Guillermo Sana heightens Ryan's body horror story with some brilliant artwork depicting gross mass of meat that Tony becomes when he gets into the armor, and it's just all leaking through his suit and just making everything really gross. And I really love just how far they were able to push it with some of the stuff that we saw in this issue, like him cramming Jarvis and Happy into one armor and like forcing them into it, and their bodies all crush together and become this writhing mass of meat, and it's just so gross. And it reminds me of stuff like Akira or Tetsuo the Iron Man, the Japanese film that I suggest everyone go and try and find because it's absolutely bonkers. The Darkhold Iron Man issue 1 was a really fun horror-centric tie-in to the Darkhold event, taking a unique look at Tony Stark's addictions through the eyes of Pepper Potts, all done with a really great horror slant to the classic Iron Man origin. I'm going to give this issue a 9.5 out of 10. The Darkhold Iron Man issue 1 heads decades into the past, where Pepper Potts and Happy Hogan come across a strange iron suit at Stark Industries, shocked to find a man within it. Pepper finds Tony Stark is in the armor, quickly trying to get it off, but Tony tells them to leave his chest piece on, since the shrapnel in his heart is being stopped by the electromagnets within the chest piece, and it's keeping him alive. He unplugs it from the charging station, saying he just needed a little charge, but now he's good. Pepper tries to remind him he really isn't that well, but Tony gets back to work, knowing that he's only got a few organ traumas and burns. He knows that the suit isn't enough, but he can make it better than an armor or a weapon. Happy tries to tell him he needs a doctor, not an engineer, but Tony snaps that if he wanted the boxer to tell him, he wouldn't have hired him as his chauffeur, and he should let Tony show him what he can really do. Pepper is told by Tony that he needs space to create and to save the world, but she doesn't listen, staying with him and helping him thanks to her work in the classified robotics sector of the company. Pepper soon passes out, but is awoken later by Tony, who is back in the armor again, saying that his dermal regenerators wouldn't get much done if he took it off. Pepper is surprised to see that Tony looks good as new under the suit, but she knows it takes more than dermal regenerators to not leave scarring, and he had a lot of scarring. He reveals that he also added some other fancy tech that runs along with his brain, and not only that, the suit can probe inside his own body and repair organ damage, among other things, with the sole purpose being to keep him alive and safe. He shows her his hand, saying that he had fractures all up and down it, wanting her to remove his gauntlet to show her the new one. Removing the gauntlet though reveals that his arm is horribly decomposed and without skin. Tony soon goes into shock from the unbearable pain, so Pepper slides the glove back on, which immediately calms the man, almost like it's anesthetizing him. Tony knows that it's just a few bugs to work out, as Happy knows the armor ate his skin. Tony doesn't think so, since it was replacing his skin, and he knows it just went too far, and the suit must have calculated that iron skin would offer more protection than human flesh. He knows that he can fix it, wanting the team to help him get the rest of the suit off, all except for his glove, as he plans on rebuilding the suit's supervisory algorithm to make it regenerate the skin it took. Pepper, thanks to knowing all of the latest AI and biomedical research, knows that she can help out, as Jarvis and Happy are sent to prepare the manufacturing plants to help solve this problem. problem. Tony and Pepper get to work, with Pepper finding working close to Tony quite invigorating, noting all his little tics, and how when he really thinks, his leg begins to shake. She knows she loves that all and him, as soon Tony reveals that he doesn't really like himself anymore, and he thought that he might die in that cave, and all he could think about was his obituary and how it would say he made weapons and profited off of death. He knows that it's unfair because he never actually killed anyone, and no one blames people like Gordon Moore when a piece of malicious code is written on an Intel machine. He knows that when he made the suit though, he killed every man and woman who held him hostage, so that argument really doesn't hold up anymore. Tony begins to cry, knowing that he can justify it, but he wants to change that obituary and wants the world to remember Tony Stark was a hero who saved the little guy when no one else would. He knows the suit is how they do this, and he wants to use his time he has left to save people. He also remembers how in the cave he knows that no one is guaranteed any time, and he's tired of postponing what he really wants and being with the people he loves. He kisses Pepper, but she stops him, knowing that there will be plenty of time for that once they get the machine off his chest and hand. Tony agrees, knowing their date will be put on hold as he leaves to run trials on his computer in his lab, as Pepper works on her own portion of the trials, losing herself in the work that she doesn't even realize days go by. Jarvis soon comes by with some food as Tony calls out to them as well, shocking the two as Tony again has sealed himself in the armor, which is now leaking a type of viscous liquid. Pepper asks why Tony put the suit back on, but he doesn't remember even putting it back on, knowing his legs and arms and head begun hurting, so he put it back on, knowing that he did, but he didn't even notice himself putting it back on at the time. Pepper knows the liquid is Tony's skin and it's all dissolved, so they can't remove the armor, otherwise it will kill him. Tony knows he's concerned, but why would he ever want to remove the armor now? Tony is quick to tell the shocked woman that he's just joking, but since it is keeping him alive, he does have to stay in it. He gets back to work, wanting Jarvis to make up a nutritional eye solution for him. The team leave to mix the solution, but upon coming back, Tony is found unconscious on the floor, and the suit activates the isolation protocol of the lab, trapping Tony in the lab away from Pepper and Jarvis. Pepper says that she'll scan Tony and get a look inside the suit, and doing so reveals that whatever is happening to him is accelerating, and the suit is now wired deep into his brain, and his skull is gone, so he can now never ever leave the suit again. Pepper knows that Tony is so calm about all of this, only raising his head to tell Pepper that all sounds fine, since an iron skull is better and stronger than a human skull. Tony walks deeper into the lab, knowing that he needs to fix this leak and needs to work, so their date will have to be put on hold. The building goes into lockdown, and soon Tony gets an idea, knowing that the human body is flawed and full of weak points, but he can make a better body. He stops the lockdown, letting Happy and Jarvis in, but then he quickly closes the doors on Pepper, killing the men in the fire suppression systems that suck all of the oxygen out of the room. As Pepper watches on in horror over the camera feeds, Tony takes the men's bodies and crams them both into one of his old suits, sealing it and turning them into a liquid amalgamation that now controls the suit, shambling out into the darkness to help Tony in his work. Stark Tower soon has its lockdown lifted as Pepper sees the armor is now down where the people are, claiming that it can cure all diseases and all people have to do is climb inside of it. She smashes the window out, yelling at the people to get away from the suit, but it's futile since the people still get in, faster even than before. Pepper begins hearing the screams below, which soon become a chorus of death cries. Tony soon comes for her, taking her as she knows that she'll soon be screaming, as what was once Tony Stark leads her over to her own armor.